Good morning, and welcome to the Dante's Workshop. Each of you can make a difference by helping service members in your command meet their educational goals. The job of ESO is not simply handing out some brochures and supervising some tests. Done well, it can make a lasting impression on all who enter your office. You're the vital link to educational benefits for service members in your command. These men and women will look to you for expertise and guidance in developing an educational plan to best meet their goals. The options are many. Traditional classroom programs and non-traditional programs offered outside the classroom may be mixed and matched to create an educational plan tailored to the individual's goals. Now let's look at one non-traditional program that is widely used by both military and civilian personnel. The program, College Credit by Examination, is offered to all military personnel by Dante's, the defense activity for non-traditional education support. These tests provide a way to document college-level learning usually gained outside the classroom. Dante's offers 3 major college credit examination programs. The College-Level Examination Program, CLEP for short, offers both general and subject tests. The CLEP general exams cover material normally found in the first or second year of college. The CLEP subject exams cover over 40 different subject areas. The CLEP tests are primarily multiple-choice, timed exams, although there are some tests with optional essay components. By passing one of these subject tests, a service member may earn 3 to 6 semester hours of college credit. Another program through which service members can earn college credit for specific subject areas is the American College Testing Proficiency Examination Program, or ACT-PEP for short. ACT-PEP tests are most often timed multiple-choice exams. However, a few are essay in nature. ACT-PEP tests measure one's knowledge of a subject and their ability to apply and use that knowledge. The final credit by examination program is the Dante's Subject Standardized Tests, or DSSTs. The DSSTs, like the others, are multiple choice tests. The big difference, they are untimed. You generally earn 3 semester hours of credit if you pass. The DSSTs are particularly good for service members who prefer tests without time constraints. These are the study guides and fact sheets available for each college credit test offered by Dante's. Let's look at one fact sheet in depth. This is a DSST fact sheet for a psychology test. It gives test information such as the number of questions on the test and the minimum number of correct responses needed to pass the test. It also recommends that the test candidate contact the institution where they expect to receive credit to determine if the school will accept the test results and verify the score required.
I thought these tests were standardized, and if you passed, you got the credits.
Generally, that's true, but the college or university has the option of requiring a higher or lower passing score to award credit. That's why it's so important to be sure that the selected institution will accept the test results. Okay, next on the fact sheet, we have the content specifications section, a list of the topics covered on the examination, and the percentage of questions in each topic and subtopic area.
By percentage of questions, do you mean how important that area will be on the test?
Exactly. For example, on this psychology exam, lifespan development comprises 4 to 6%, and social, emotional, and personality development comprise 35 to 40%.
So there'll be a lot more questions on social and personality development than on lifespan development, right?
Right, but that doesn't mean you should advise your clients to ignore lifespan development when preparing for the test. Rather, tell them to use this information as a study guide. Obviously, they need to spend significantly more time when preparing on social, emotional, and personality development than on lifespan development. The next section on the fact sheet is reference publications. This section lists books that will be helpful when preparing for the test. It also recommends reviewing more than one book to cover all the content areas. It's a good idea to review effective study techniques with your client. What study tips do you find effective? Anyone?
Read the book and take notes.
Set aside a certain time each day to study and do it every day.
Use the content specification section as a guide to determine how to divvy up your time.
Okay, the next section on the fact sheet, sample questions. The sample questions give the student a good idea of what the real test questions will be like.
Are these sample questions taken from the actual tests?
No, but they are indicative of the actual questions. You can tell your clients that while these exact questions won't be on the examination they take, the form and content of the questions will be similar. Let's look at the technical information and norming statistics sections. These sections will provide some insight into how tests are normed and the makeup of the norming group.
Please explain what you mean by normed.
In order to be able to award credit for an examination, the users of the test, colleges and universities, must be sure that the test has validity. Validity is the extent to which the test measures what it is intended to measure. The test must be reliable. Scores should be accurate and consistent. To measure these characteristics and to help develop a passing score, the test is normed, given to a norming group.
What's a norming group?
In the case of a college-level examination, such as a DSST, a norming group is a group of college and university students who are completing or who recently completed a course in the test subject. The colleges and universities are large and small, private and state, and are located throughout the United States. Notice the section, Credit Recommendations. This section tells you that the American Council on Education has reviewed the Dantes program and recommends, among other things, how many credits a school may award if you pass the test and what the passing score is.
What do you mean, may award credit? I thought you pass, you get credit.
Remember what I said earlier. Each service member must check with the institution from which they hope to get credit to be sure the school will accept the results of a particular exam. Also, the institution may establish its own passing score requirement.
Under credit recommendations, it says that credit may be awarded for a standard score of 47 or 54 correct responses. What is a standard score, and is 54 correct answers always passing?
All tests in the Dantes program are reported in terms of standard scores, not correct answers. On this particular test, to achieve a standard score of 47, a student has to get 54 correct responses.
Why do you use a standard score?
In this example, the raw score, the number of questions answered correctly, does not permit comparisons of candidates' performance from one examination to another, because the number of questions may vary from examination to examination, as well as the level of difficulty of the questions. Say you have two test forms, A and B, on the same subject. Test A has 115 questions, the other test, B, 155. The same person taking both tests gets 70 questions right on test A and passes, and 90 right on test B and fails it. Now they come to you and they want to know why. They may even think that there was something wrong with the test. What do you tell them?
Apples and oranges. Two different tests. They can't be compared.
Yes, they can. Through the use of an algebraic formula, raw scores can be converted to standard scores. Standard scores allow you to compare test scores from different test forms. It's much easier to understand when you look at it on a normal curve. The normal curve was developed early in the 19th century by a Belgian named Adolphe Quetelet. He noticed that if you measured and weighed soldiers, they fell into a pattern. Some were big and some were small, but most were in the middle. Since Quetelet's time, studies have shown that most things of the same type have a similar pattern of distribution when charted. For example, if you took all the soldiers in the world and measured them, a graph showing those measurements would look like this normal or bell curve. Small and big soldiers at each end, with the largest number of soldiers in the middle. Test scores are no different. When you graph them, they usually fall into a normal curve. Here in the middle is where most people's scores will fall. To pass, our clients' scores generally need to fall in this range. Remember our example. Test A had 115 questions. Test B, 155. When the tests were normed, the raw scores ranged from 36 to 102 on Test A and from 55 to 139 on Test B. This range of raw scores is called the frequency of distribution. In order to develop a fair and accurate passing score, the test developers take the scores of the C students and compute their mean or average score. This mean becomes the passing score requirement, and students scoring below this mean fail the test, and students scoring above pass. The average or mean of the C students for Test A is 69, and for Test B, 97. You compute the average or mean score by simply totaling up all the C student scores and dividing by the number of C students in the norming group. Remember, the raw scores are used in an algebraic formula to develop a standard score scale. The standard score scales range from 20 to 80 with a mean of 50 and a standard deviation or score dispersion of 10. I know this is hard to understand, but in other words, from raw scores, test developers compute standard scores, which are used to compare the test results of different forms of the same test. Okay, what else do we need to know in order to tell our client why they passed one test and failed the other?
To figure out how well our client did, we need to know how their score compared to those of the norming group.
Anyone remember what we were trying to figure out here?
Why the client got 70 correct answers on one test and passed, and 90 correct on another form of the same test and failed.
The answer is the norming group for Test B had a mean or average of 97, while the mean for Test A was 69. So our client did better than average on A and worse than average on B.
What does all this really mean?
It means our client has to do some more studying in order to pass Test B. It also means that our client is very close to passing. 9 more correct answers are all that is needed to pass. Now, if the client gets 70 correct answers on both tests, for Test A, that's a passing score. For Test B, that's very low on the scale. Well, that about wraps up the fact sheet. Now let's look at the score report forms. In most cases, the score report forms are sent to you as the test administrator approximately 3 to 6 weeks after the test date. A form like this will be used to report the results of the CLEP General and subject exams and all DSSTs. The ACT-PEP form looks like this. Both contain similar information: examinee's name, date of test, name of test, and the results. CLEP subject exams and the DSSTs are reported on a standard scale of 20 to 80. 2 grading systems are used to evaluate ACT-PEP examinations: standard scores from 20 to 80 for multiple choice tests and pass or fail for essay tests. CLEP general exams are reported on a standard score scale of 200 to 800. You need to be able to interpret the score report for your client. Now what we learned earlier about standard scores will be very useful.
Wait, the standard score by itself is meaningless. We need to be able to compare it to a percentile rank.
Exactly right. So let's take the ACT-PEP form first and turn it over. On the back is interpretive information and a comparison of standard scores and percentile ranks. So if our client received a standard score of 60, they're in the 84th percentile, which means they did better than 84% of the norming group. And that's pretty good.
So if they scored 40, they're in the 16th percentile and only did better than 16% of the norming group, right?
That's right.
What is the passing score?
Very good question. Remember the section on the fact sheet that lists the recommended passing score from the American Council on Education? This nationally recognized agency recommends 45 as the minimum passing standard score on the ACT-PEP tests.
My client, whose standard score was 40, was pretty close to passing. So should I tell him to study some more and try again?
Examinees whose scores are more than 1 standard deviation below the recommended passing score should probably be encouraged to either participate in a formal program of instruction or to engage in a serious program of preparation prior to retaking the test.
What are the recommended passing scores for the CLEP and DSST exams?
On the CLEP subject exams and the DSSTs, a standard score of between 41 and 53, depending on the test, is considered passing. On the CLEP general exams, 421 is considered passing. This booklet, CLEP, What Your Score Means, comes with every score report. It contains a wealth of information. Study it. It will help you and your client understand the test scores. The percentile ranks for the CLEP general and subject exams are contained in this booklet, as well as grade equivalents for the CLEP subject exams. Okay, our time is almost up, so let's review what we've discussed today. The Credit by Examination program offers the chance to transform experience and college-level learning gained outside the classroom into college credit. There are 3 major Credit by Examination programs: the CLEP General and Subject exams, the ACT-PEP exams, and the DSSTs. A fact sheet or study guide is available for each test and contains important information on test information, content specifications, reference publications, sample questions, credit recommendations, technical information, and norming statistics. A score report form will be sent to you as the test administrator. When you receive it, call your client and schedule an appointment to discuss the results. The job of the ESO will be one of the most challenging and rewarding duties of your career. Done well, it can make a lasting impression on all the men and women who seek your help. Each of you can make a difference in their lives by helping them to make the grade.